Hello, friends. This is Confessions with Amy. Here we share new confessions every day.
They didn't just underpay me. They erased me. That was the hardest part to admit. Not the numbers on my paycheck, not the brutal hours, not even the cold shoulder I got in meetings I used to lead. It was the quiet erasure that gutted me the most. Like I'd become part of the furniture. Useful, familiar, but invisible. I was 30 years old. I'd given 5 years of my life to Halcyon Metrics, a data analytics firm in Seattle with floor-to-ceiling windows and zero regard for work-life balance. I was brought on as an operations lead when the company was still scrappy, operating out of a WeWork space near Capitol Hill. Back then, Carson Reddington actually knew my name. Back then, I mattered. I helped build the ops department from the ground up. I led the restructuring of our internal systems that saved the company nearly $400,000 in overhead in just under a year. When one of our VPs had a family emergency and dropped out in Q2, I stepped in. No promotion, no raise. Just me doing 2 jobs while Carson went golfing with the board. And I took it. I took it because I believed in the company. Because I thought it would pay off. I was wrong. The day I asked for a raise was a Tuesday. Gray, wet, standard Pacific Northwest gloom. I wore a navy blazer and a dress I'd ironed the night before. My talking points were printed, annotated, rehearsed. I walked into Carson's office. He had just gotten back from a leadership summit in Palm Springs, which is corporate speak for 5-star brunches and pretending you're solving global problems over Chardonnay. He barely looked up. "Hey, General, what's up?" That's all I got. No chair offered. No greeting. Just that lazy smirk and the sound of his Slack notifications pinging in the background. I launched into my case, delivered the metrics, the extra responsibilities I'd absorbed, the 2 product launches I managed without a project manager. I said I was requesting a 10% increase, which would finally bring me in line with the industry average for my role. He blinked once, leaned back in his leather chair, and let out a soft chuckle. 10%, he said, as if I'd asked to borrow his Tesla. Then he smirked wider. "If you think someone out there is gonna pay you that, hey, try somewhere else." He waved one hand like that was the end of the conversation. Like I was dismissed. Like I was the absurd one. I stood there for a moment, holding my resume summary sheet like an idiot, wondering if I should say something. Challenge him. Fight for it. But then I saw it, his expression. That quiet, smug confidence. The certainty that I wouldn't leave. That I wouldn't dare. That's when I knew I'd already lost. I walked out of his office, not defeated, but clear. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about respect. About how someone could look at your contributions, your sacrifices, and laugh in your face like none of it mattered. My heels echoed down the hallway as I passed by the break room, the bullpen, the endless rows of unmarked desks. I'd hired half the people in this building. Trained most of them. I was the go-to when deals stalled, when clients threatened to leave, when entire departments crashed under pressure. I was the safety net. And Carson just told me to try somewhere else. He had no idea what that sentence would cost him. I went home that night and didn't cry. Not out of strength, but because I was too tired. I microwaved leftovers, fed my cat, and stared at my laptop for 2 hours without moving. At 10:34 p.m., I opened my contacts and scrolled until I found his name. Lucien Wells, CEO of Alder and Vale Analytics, our biggest competitor. He had once tried to poach me over drinks at a tech conference in Denver. I laughed it off back then. I was loyal to Halcyon. I was invested. God, how naive I was. I stared at his number for a long time. My thumb hovered. I didn't have a plan. I just had rage and clarity. And nothing left to lose. I hit call. I didn't expect him to pick up. It was almost 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Normal people were asleep. Executives were on red wine number 4 or in some overpriced hotel suite, ignoring calls from employees like me. But Lucien answered on the second ring. "Genevieve Harper," he said. His voice was unmistakable, low, dry, effortlessly composed. "Didn't think I'd ever see your name on my caller ID." I hesitated. My heart was thudding so loud I thought he could hear it. "I'm not calling as a friend," I said finally. "I'm calling because I'm open to talking." A beat of silence. Then, Oh. He sounded amused. What happened? Halcyon finally realized what a mistake they made keeping you in ops instead of on the board. I let out a small, humorless laugh. Worse. They decided I was overpaid. Bullshit. No. Carson told me to try somewhere else. Lucien exhaled sharply, then laughed under his breath like he couldn't quite believe his luck. Well, he said, voice now sharpening with purpose, then let's make sure you do. Lucien didn't waste time. He never had. That was one of the things I'd always noticed about him. He was strategic in the way quiet people are when they're used to being underestimated. By Thursday, I was in a corner booth at a quiet rooftop bar in Belltown, wearing the same black dress I'd once worn to a product launch Carson forgot to attend. This time, I wasn't here to please anyone. I was here to negotiate. Lucien ordered 2 glasses of Syrah without asking. I appreciated that. I hate small talk. He slid the glass across the table and looked me dead in the eye. I want you, Genevieve. Full stop. I've wanted you on my team since the moment I saw you dismantle that supply chain model in Denver in under 6 minutes. I said nothing, just watched him. I'd learned that silence was its own kind of leverage. He leaned back, folded his hands. We're expanding. New contract with Lockwell Industries. I need someone to lead cross-functional operations, integrate legacy systems, and actually know how to manage humans. You're at the top of a very short list. What's the offer? I asked, trying to sound colder than I felt. Lucien smiled, not the arrogant kind like Carson's. The kind that said, I know your value even if they didn't. 32% bump from what I'm guessing Carson's paying you. Signing bonus. Full equity package. 4 direct reports, all yours to handpick. And I guarantee in 18 months, you'll be in the C-suite. It was more than I expected. More than I even dared to hope for. I stared at my wine, trying not to let the heat rise in my chest. I need the offer in writing, I said. You'll have it in the morning. I got up to leave. Lucien stood, held out his hand. You're not just a hire, Genevieve. You're leverage. I raised an eyebrow. For what? For reminding Carson Reddington that the people who build empires don't usually wear suits. They wear you out, then lose everything when you walk. When I stepped outside, the Seattle night was unusually clear. I pulled my coat tighter and walked 3 extra blocks just to think. Carson had told me to try somewhere else. And now I had. He had no idea what was coming. I didn't rush it. When the offer came through the next morning, it was everything Lucien promised, and then some. A formal letter from Alder and Vale with a starting salary that made my hands tremble, plus a signing bonus that could pay off the last of my student loans and then some. Full healthcare. Remote flexibility. A real path upward. Not just lip service. But I didn't send my resignation immediately. No. I gave Carson a chance to fix it. Not because I believed he would, but because I wanted to see it. I wanted to look into his eyes and give him the opportunity to make it right. I wanted the satisfaction of watching him fail to even try. I booked the meeting for 9 a.m. on Friday. I knew he liked to come in late, and I wanted him irritated. Off balance. Sloppy. When I walked into his office, he was half scrolling through his phone, sipping one of those grotesque protein shakes he thought made him look younger. He looked up, startled. You again, he said like I was some intern who forgot their badge. I sat down without waiting for an invitation, pulled out a printed copy of the Alder and Vale offer, and slid it across his desk like a winning poker hand. I'm giving my notice, I said calmly. I've accepted a senior operations role at Alder and Vale. For a split second, he didn't react. Like his brain hadn't fully processed the sentence. Then his face darkened, fast. You're kidding, he said. I'm not. He picked up the paper, skimmed it, eyes narrowing. Lucien Wells offered you this? This is way above your bracket. I smiled. Not sweetly. Apparently not. He threw the paper down. What the hell, Genevieve? You blindside me with this after everything we've built. I let that hang in the air. Built. I echoed. We didn't build anything. I did. You just stood there with your arms crossed and cashed the checks. He scoffed and leaned back in his chair, arms folded. This is about the raise, isn't it? Jesus. I thought you had thicker skin than that. This isn't about the raise, I said, voice steady. It's about the fact that you didn't even think I was worth a conversation. You didn't even ask what it would take to keep me. You laughed. He shifted in his seat. The silence stretched just a little too long. I could see it, the panic he was trying to hide. He didn't think I'd actually go. He never does. People like Carson assume loyalty is infinite when they're the ones benefiting from it. So that's it, he snapped. You're running to our competitor like some bitter ex? No, I said, standing up. I'm walking toward the people who actually know what I'm worth. There's a difference. The real silence came after I left his office. I didn't go back to my desk. I didn't send a goodbye email. I walked straight out of the building with my head high and my resignation already in HR's inbox. As I pushed open the front doors of Halcyon for the last time, I felt a strange mix of grief and freedom swirl in my chest. I had spent years proving myself in that building, waiting to be seen, to be valued, and all I had to do was leave it behind to finally feel whole. By 3 p.m. that afternoon, Carson sent me a text. Let's talk. Maybe we can figure something out. I didn't reply, because this was me trying somewhere else. And it felt like winning. My first day at Alder and Vale felt like stepping into a version of my life that someone had redesigned with me in mind. No silent judgment. No glass ceilings hidden under fluorescent lights. Just clarity. And room to breathe. The office was sleek and minimal, glass, wood, and light. No cold concrete, no passive-aggressive quote posters about hustle. I was met by a smiling assistant named Marlo, gender-neutral pronouns, excellent taste in linen suits, who handed me a welcome packet with my name printed in bold serif letters across the front. Inside was everything. And my job title, VP of Integrated Operations. A customized onboarding plan. A handwritten note from Lucien himself. We move fast here, but I trust you to move faster. And then the last item, a small glossy black box. Inside was a sleek nameplate for my office door. Genevieve Harper, VP. I stood there for a full minute holding it, unsure if I wanted to cry or scream. For 5 years, I'd been invisible. Now, my name was on the damn door. That first week, I hit the ground running. Lucien gave me access to their current internal structure and asked for a 3-month roadmap. I gave it to him in 3 days, complete with bottleneck diagnostics, team optimization strategies, and a full-stack integration plan for the Lockwell partnership. During my first leadership meeting, Lucien introduced me with a single sentence. Genevieve built half of Halcyon. I hired her to build something better. There were no interruptions when I spoke. No eye rolls. No half-listening. People took notes. And it wasn't just performative. When I identified a flaw in the resource allocation model, the CFO actually said, "Damn, good catch." When I requested 2 hires for ops support, they were posted by end of day. When I asked for data sets, they were sent within the hour. This was what respect felt like. By the end of week 2, I was already leading daily check-ins with the Lockwell integration team, meeting department heads, and restructuring the workflow process that had been bleeding money for months. Lucien texted me one night at 10:12 p.m. Just saw your update in the Slack thread. You're making waves. The good kind. I replied, thanks. I'm just getting started. And I was. But I wasn't the only one who'd noticed. Because the moment Alder and Vale announced my hire on LinkedIn, complete with a photo of me in my new office, coffee in hand, beaming, Carson noticed too. He didn't comment. He didn't like the post. But 3 of his executive team members did. One even sent me a DM that said, "Didn't know you were interviewing. You'll kill it over there." They're lucky. Carson's kingdom? It was starting to crack. That weekend, I heard from Natalie, a senior analyst I used to mentor at Halcyon. She called me from her car during her lunch break. "Carson's freaking out," she whispered. "He thought you were bluffing. He's been stalking your LinkedIn for days. Called an emergency all-hands Friday morning and tried to spin it like he let you go because you weren't aligned with the vision." I laughed. "And people believe that?" "No one believes it," she said. "Honestly, I think he's scared." Good. He should be. The email came late on a Wednesday night. Subject line: "Can we talk?" From Carson Reddington. I stared at it on my phone for a full minute before I opened it. "Genevieve, I've been thinking a lot about our conversation. I realize now that I may have misjudged the situation. If you're open to a discussion, I'd like to revisit the possibility of you returning to Halcyon in a more senior capacity. We could explore VP-level options and a comp package to match. I never meant to make you feel undervalued. You were never supposed to leave. Carson. It was so perfectly Carson. Not an apology. Not ownership. Just control dressed up in concern. For a moment, I just stared at the line, "You were never supposed to leave." Like I was property. Like I had wandered off script. Like he got to decide what I was supposed to do. The next morning, I read the email again. Then I forwarded it to Lucien with a single line. "You'll want to see this." He replied 10 minutes later. He's panicking. "You're winning." On Friday afternoon, I got a text from Natalie again. "Carson's walking around the office like a ghost. Word is, he tried to pitch your return to the board and got laughed out of the room." I wasn't surprised. I'd heard from 3 Halcyon employees that they were applying to Alder and Vale. 2 had already name-dropped me in their cover letters. I was becoming a symbol of escape, of proof that there was life after loyalty. Carson didn't want me back. He wanted control back. And he thought dangling a title I should have had years ago would do the trick. Out of curiosity, or maybe because some small part of me wanted closure, I agreed to take a 10-minute Zoom with him. Lucien knew. He encouraged it. "Take it," he said. "Sometimes the best way to win is to let them speak." So I did. He logged in late. His camera was on, but the lighting was awful, washed out and gray. For the first time in years, he looked small to me. "Genevieve," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You look different." I nodded. "I feel different." He exhaled. "I've been thinking about what you said, and I want to do right by you. Let's not let pride get in the way of an opportunity here." "Pride?" I asked, leaning in. "Is that what you think this is about?" "I think this is about 2 people who work well together letting one bad moment define the future." I didn't respond. I just let the silence stretch. He started to fidget. "I'm offering you VP of Strategic Ops. Full creative control. 25% pay bump. Public statement about your return." "You mean PR spin?" He looked caught for a moment, then smiled. "Optics matter. But this is genuine." "You had 5 years to be genuine, Carson," I said finally. "And you couldn't be bothered to see me. Not until I made you feel weak." He blinked. I continued. "You didn't lose me because I'm emotional. Or rash. You lost me because I gave you everything I had, and you gave me nothing but smirks and scraps. You laughed when I asked to be treated fairly. That laugh is why I left. And it's why I'll never come back." He went quiet. I smiled. "But hey, thanks for encouraging me to try somewhere else." Then I logged off. The second I closed the Zoom window, I felt something lift off my chest. Not power. Not revenge. Just peace. He couldn't touch me anymore. And I finally didn't need him to. Something shifted after that call with Carson. Not in him and me. I stopped checking Halcyon's LinkedIn. I stopped wondering what they said about me in meetings I no longer attended. I stopped needing to be understood by people who had never seen me in the first place. Instead, I started thinking about legacy. Not just the systems I could improve or the teams I could lead, but the culture I wanted to create. The version of the workplace I never had, but always deserved. At Alder and Vale, I began doing something no one asked me to do. Every Wednesday, I set aside 2 hours on my calendar, titled it Ops and Aspirations, and met with 2 junior employees from completely different departments. Not evaluations. Not performance reviews. Just conversations. "Tell me what your dream role is here," I'd say. Or, "What's the dumbest policy we still haven't changed?" Sometimes, "If you could rewrite your job description tomorrow, what would it say?" They opened up. They told me things they hadn't told their managers. And over time I realized I wasn't just helping them. I was rewriting the map. One Thursday morning, I came into the office to find a handwritten card on my desk. It was from Marlowe, the assistant who'd welcomed me on my first day. "Genevieve, you probably don't remember, but on your second day here, I told you I was interested in strategy. You said, 'Then I'll make sure you're in the next planning session.' And you did. I've never had a VP remember something I said in passing and then do something about it. Thank you for not just opening the door, but holding it open. Marlo. I read it twice, then once more. It hit me harder than any promotion I'd ever gotten. Because this ripple effect was the real reward. Meanwhile, word was spreading. By month 4, Alder and Vale had 3 more Halcyon refugees on staff. Lucien started joking that I was rebuilding the company with all their best parts. He wasn't wrong. One day he pulled me into a one-on-one and said, "You know, you're not just turning ops around, right? You're setting the tone for the entire org. The standard. That's what real leadership looks like." I thanked him, but the truth was, I finally didn't need the validation. I had already given it to myself. But Carson? He wasn't done. That same week, a former colleague forwarded me a screenshot from a Slack thread at Halcyon. Carson had just announced a full departmental restructure, based on a version of the roadmap I'd proposed 6 months before I left. No attribution. No acknowledgement. Just silence as always. I smiled. He could copy the blueprint. But he couldn't copy me. Because now I wasn't just an employee. I was a blueprint of my own. It was a Thursday morning in late April when the email hit my inbox. Subject line: Speaker invitation, Women Who Lead 2025. From Harvard Business School. I thought it was spam at first. But it wasn't. It was real. They wanted me to speak on a panel titled Redefining Leadership, from Undervalued to Unstoppable. They said my story was exactly the kind of voice we need in that room. I stared at the screen, frozen. Not because I didn't think I was ready, but because I realized I was. 2 weeks later, I was standing on a stage in Boston, looking out at a room full of women who looked like me 5 years ago. Brilliant, exhausted, overlooked. I told them about Halcyon. I told them about Carson. About the laugh, the door slam, the shrug, the try somewhere else. And then I told them what happened after I did. I watched eyes widen. Heads nod. A few scribbled notes like they were trying to bottle every word. And when I closed with this line, "You are not too much. They're just not enough," the room erupted. Standing ovation. Not for drama. Not for pity. But for recognition. That night, I flew back to San Francisco. I landed just after midnight, took a car home, and walked into my apartment, the one I'd bought with my Alder and Vale bonus. My name was on the mortgage. My art on the walls. My dog Callisto, asleep on the couch. This was my life now. Built brick by brick from the rubble of everything they thought I'd never escape. The next morning, I woke up to a Slack from Lucien. "We just closed the Lockwell deal, $6.8 million in revenue. You did that. Also, board wants to talk C-suite expansion. You in?" I was. Of course I was. Sometimes people ask me if I'm angry at Carson. If I ever think about what could have been if he'd just said yes to that 10%. The truth? I'm grateful he said no. Because if he hadn't, I might have stayed. I might have kept shrinking myself to fit into someone else's vision. I might have wasted another 5 years waiting for someone like him to see me. But now, I don't need to be seen by people like that anymore. Because I see myself. And I built something real. My name is Genevieve Harper. VP turned executive partner. Leader. Builder. Door opener. And nobody's second choice. Not anymore.